The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, good day. This is Drew Johnston. We are excited about this webinar today. We are going to wait a few minutes. We have a fair few people still clicking in. So we're going to start this webinar in about a minute or so. Just want to give everyone a heads up and look forward to sharing this information. All right, I still see a fair few people logging in to this webinar. So I'm just going to go over some housekeeping items before we kick everything off. I'm first going to say hello, everyone, and happy National Drive Electric Week. I'm Andrew Johnston with Guidehouse, and we're really delighted to share news about the Smart Charging Infrastructure Pilot Program today. Just a few housekeeping items. You're in a GoToMeeting. We do have this event recorded, and it's going to be on the website that you see at the bottom of the screen, dominionenergy.com/skip. And it's going to be up there in a few days or so. So if your colleagues want to watch this down the line, know that it'll be available to them. For questions and comments that you may have over the course of this session, we ask that you, in the right side panel, you will see collapsible areas, and one of them is questions. You can pose questions to the panel in the question area, and in the chat, there is a to section, and you could say to, and it could be to all, organizer only, organizers and panelists only, presenters only, or specific individuals. So our recommendation is that for sending a chat that you want the organizers to see, that you put it to organizers and panelists only. You can send the chat to them, to organizers and panelists only, and we'll be able to see it. And if you have a question, it will go to all the viewers. We'll be taking questions at the end to help people understand more about the program. So we're going to get started now. We've had about 25% more people log in since the start of the housekeeping items, and so I'm just going to kick right off, and I'm looking forward to questions that we have along the way. So we have exciting news to share today about driving electric, and we want to thank you again for joining this launch webinar for the Smart Charging Infrastructure Pilot Program. So today, as you may know, is our first chance to publicly share the news about this exciting program. And to do that, I'm going to kick off this webinar by just introducing myself and our speakers. I have with me Dr. Shelley Francis, co-founder of EV Noir, the largest network of minority EV owners and enthusiasts in the country, and our partner in community and stakeholder engagement in this project. And we also have Rehan Dowdani, communications for Dominion Energy. And I'll be your MC today. And you know, a little about me. I'm in the mobility solutions team for Guidehouse Consulting, and we've been working on this program and ramping it up for a few months, and we're really excited to make it go live today. So a little about the SKIP program. The SKIP program is offering some really exciting and generous rebates for networked qualified chargers, as well as a number of benefits for customers and EV drivers across the state of Virginia. And so this program is offering some innovative ways of engaging key segments to address market demand for EV charging. And so to share more about the SKIP program and EV charging as an option for Virginians, I'm going to introduce Rehan, and he'll give you a little summary about the program and about the summary of the program rebates. Rehan?
Thank you, Drew. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
All right. Well, this is exciting. I think you captured that. I want to make sure that everybody understands what we're trying to accomplish here today. I know you're probably sitting through a lot of webinars and virtual meetings as a result of the pandemic, but this one I think is going to be different because by the end of this hour, I've learned more about a way that you can save money, differentiate yourself in the marketplace, and help create a cleaner environment through EV charging infrastructure and the rebates that we're offering here today. Driving an electric vehicle is fun. It is lower cost for those customers, the drivers in the long run, and as you would imagine, no tailpipe emissions for cleaner air. Right now, there are about 20,000 electric vehicles in Virginia, but that number is exploding. We expect around 170,000 electric vehicles in Dominion Energy's Virginia territory by the end of this decade. So there are a lot of benefits for the EV drivers, but there are benefits for you as well. For example, there are the environmental benefits. You get to align yourself with people who prioritize climate action and show that it fits within your values as a municipality, as a business owner, or as someone who runs a condominium complex or apartment complex. It also has a great business value. Your customers, your residents, your workers will be able to drive their electric vehicle and charge it at your site. And that's very important to spur electric vehicle adoption, but also as a way to make sure that you are differentiated. And what we know is, just anecdotally speaking, if they're going to your place of business, they're going to spend time there to charge their car and then be your patron, and they will find greater brand affinity for you in the long run. And of course, there's the community value. If you have, for example, an apartment complex or a condominium complex, your residents are going to value that. And that's something that they are going to see that you are offering a premium benefit for them as well. For this pilot program, to participate, we have very significant rebates that we are able to offer, but it is a pilot program, and I want to emphasize that. It is a finite amount of funding. And so we do ask that you apply while this funding is available. And by the end of this hour, we'll be able to walk you through exactly how that will take place, what the rebates are valued at, and what they would go towards. There are great benefits there. The reason we are offering this pilot program is to support smart electric vehicle charging station installations. And then what we will do through this pilot is we're going to collect that data and offer even better programs going forward, because they're going to be tailored based on our experience here to make sure that we're putting forward the best options for you and for your customers. We want them to have a positive experience, and we want to be able to offer future programs that are going to be even more valuable for them in the long run. And so I want to talk also about the different types of pilot program rebates that you have. Right here on the next slide, this applies for people who are in charge of multifamily buildings. Perhaps you have an office building. There are rebates there as well. Maybe you're with a municipality and you're looking for transit buses or public fast charging. Those are available as well. They will help. We will be able to help you through these rebates offset the cost of smart charging stations and their installation. The rebates are designed to cover about 50 to 75% of the cost. It'll vary by project, but that's significant if you've been holding back on smart charging infrastructure because it was too costly. This significantly reduces your out-of-pocket expenses. And we'll talk about those rebates amounts in greater detail later in the webinar. If you are joining us a little late, you've got questions, put them in the question box that's over to the right of your screen, And at the bottom of pretty much every slide, you're going to see a website, dominionenergy.com/SCIP, that stands for Smart Charging Infrastructure Pilot. That will have all of this information. And as Drew mentioned earlier, we are recording this. So if you miss anything, don't
Unmuted.
we'll get you all caught up. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Drew and get right to the meat of this program.
Thanks, Rayon. Man, you nailed it. I love how you framed that. So, looking at, where we're going with this program, it's about powering smart transportation, similar to what Rayon just said. If we can jump to the next slide and come across some of these customer benefits of participation. So, just as you're looking at smart charging and looking at EV charging vis-a-vis some other options for your workplace or your multifamily or your transit options, we're framing some of these benefits for customers like you, but also your end users around, creating business value, higher tenant retention, whether you're talking about workplace or multifamily, higher customer satisfaction, a demonstration to enhance that public image and differentiate site hosts in the real estate marketplace. This is a competitive differentiator in the 21st century amenity package. And some of the other benefits are like walking the talk. When you listen to your tenants and you listen to your employees about what they're asking for, that 21st century amenity package includes things like, 24/7 well lit, Wi-Fi, EV charging. These are elements of, the 21st century amenity package. And then these folks request these solutions, and they also have efforts to improve air quality. They're interested in lower greenhouse gas emissions, things of that nature. So, that sort of looks at preparing for tomorrow. As we all know, COVID has made times hard right now, and our communities are rebounding. There's this opportunity today to begin building back for a stronger, cleaner, and more sustainable tomorrow. And it starts by building things like this, this kind of EV charger. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I think an EV is probably what they're going to be familiar with. It's not going to be an internal combustion engine car. And so that speaks to advancing the transportation of the future sustainably. Transportation currently is the #1 source of carbon emissions, and Dominion Energy is committed to reducing it in our communities through this pilot program. Your organization can demonstrate your commitment to sustainability by improving local air quality. Next slide, please. And so, becoming a charging host may sound like a new thing. A lot of people aren't familiar with using electricity, and frankly, they're not used to the concept of charging a car rather than fueling a car. And that's where we're here to help. Dominion and Guidehouse, we've been developing this program in the minds of many, and it's been around some objectives that we have, which is, the ease in becoming a charging host is super important to everyone here. So we're looking for a smooth experience for our customers. We're here to help our customers through your installation and rebate. We are eager to drive that value and affordability. Customers can become, charging host at an affordable price, and that this rebate, like Rayon says, is estimated out to about 50 to 75% of all-in costs for EV charging. And those rebates save customers most of the upfront costs for install and the charger. And, one thing that we're really encouraged by is this transparent processing, customer-centric rebate handling process. As Rayon did mention, this affordability issue, the rebates do reduce those upfront costs and to help you become a charging station site host. But the trade-off is that this is a limited time opportunity, that the benefit is for first movers. The opportunity is to receive financial assistance, and it is, this won't last long, essentially. The rebates will only be available on a first come, first served basis. So being proactive and preparing for the growing presence of electric vehicles at a reduced cost is a value add. Or you can be reactive and catch up later and have to pay a full price. And so, these are some of the balancing that we all have to do. But, in terms of what we can control, what we want to make sure is that, our drive is a smooth experience to bring you value and affordability, satisfaction, and clear, transparent processing. Next slide, please. And the next one. So now we're going to go into probably the meat and potatoes that everyone wants to hear about, which is the program participation requirements and the equipment requirements, the technical requirements. The sizzle is the rebate, the steak is making sure you qualify. So here are some of the basic things you need to know about program participation. First, maybe Captain Obvious, but it's important. You need to be a Dominion Energy Virginia non-residential customer. Second, you need to own, lease, or operate the site that you're on, that you're requesting the rebate for. Third, you need to meet the program timelines and requirements. And this website will go over a little bit of the terms and conditions, but you can always go to the website at the bottom of this page, dominionenergy.com/skip, and you can learn more about the particulars of the program there in terms of program timelines and requirements. And perhaps most importantly, Rayon mentioned, collecting that data from these kind of pilots for future offerings. Maintaining these charging stations is critical to that. And so we do require that program participants maintain these charging stations, the physical equipment. And those are the fundamental program participation requirements for site hosts. So not the hardest bar to pass. And so we just want to call that out as a fundamental to this program. Next slide, please. So going over these eligible customers, this slide is relatively straightforward. Charging at multifamily properties has been identified as a key segment and one of the most interested segments in EV charging, not only from the site host, but from end users, drivers. A lot of programs have seen that this is a market that needs it, but there's also barriers to adoption. And so this program is designed to make those barriers less barriers and more speed bumps, and to really help your end users get that value of EV charging. Workplace charging, that means that charging can be used by employees to charge their own vehicles. And this is another demand that we are seeing across the country, but in particular in Virginia with 20,000 EVs on the road. Those people often work, and a lot of those places where they work do not offer that charging. And so that's a barrier to not only existing EV users, but the considerations of future users. And so we are seeing people gravitate to those areas that do offer workplace charging. And importantly, public fast charging. We hear the term range anxiety, meaning the range of the EV battery. People concerned about, reaching a national park and not having a charge on the way back. The public fast charging, these are high-powered charging stations, and they are purely for the public. These charging stations will allow you to accelerate the amount of charge that you can get in a shorter amount of time. And of course, transit buses. We are seeing more and more e-buses hit the market and lowering the overall TCO of operating a bus fleet dramatically. And so we're seeing eligible customers for buses for transit or shuttle purposes, and this is for charging mostly in bus depots where the bus fleet is based. Next slide, please. And so on the eligible customers, drilling down on multifamily, just a couple of things to call out here. The first is that the program does require 10 tenants, and it requires at least one current EV driver living on premise. You're allowed 4 rebates per site, and that means that 4 rebates with a dual port networked charger means you have 4 chargers, 8 ports. For workplace, the program requires 10 tenants, 1 current EV driver, but you're allowed up to 10 rebates per site. And those 10 rebates means 10 chargers, 20 ports. We often bundle multifamily and workplace together because of the charge level. And in this case, we sort of look at DC, direct current public fast charge, in its own kind of bucket. And it's a special bucket. So public fast charge rebates can only be applied to sites that are publicly accessible 24/7. They must be in well-lit locations. These are to ensure public health, safety, and welfare. and they must be able to charge any EV type. The site must allow for over 49 kW so that the charge is able to be achieved. Like multifamily and workplace, there are also to be dual port and networked. The minimum rebate is 2 chargers and the max is 4. That means 2 chargers, 4 ports, 4 chargers, 8 ports. And lastly is transit. Charging for transit buses, as I mentioned, will be depot-based. Customers must be billed on a commercial rate code. The site must allow for over 49 kW, similar to DC Fast. And maximum is 6 rebates per site, so 6 chargers, 6 ports. These must be networked as well, but they can be single port chargers. Just a asterisk here, stations must be purchased from eligible vendors, more on that later, and they must be network chargers, again, more on that later. Networked means there's connectivity in the station communications within a network of many chargers. Next slide, please. So let's go into technology requirements. Some more details there. The chargers contain software and network capabilities. The rebate includes covering costs of accessing and maintaining that network for 5 years. The charger hardware has a minimum uptime of over 98%, and that's a requirement. And so the technology, when we say qualified vendors and qualified technology, the qualification is that it's able to maintain that kind of uptime and that it's able to maintain a network. And if you have any questions or any issues about these kind of technology requirements, please reach out to us. The technical elements of this pilot require eligible chargers to provide Dominion Energy access to charging data. Again, as Rehan mentioned, this is critical to collecting data for future offerings so that they can be bigger and better as we move forward and as this demand scales. The stations must be installed properly. They must be up to code. This is a standards-based approach and by certified electricians that are familiar with and experienced with EV charging stations. And more on installation details later in the webinar. Now, due to the technology involved, your rebate application may necessitate a site plan for approval. If you have any issues there, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you. The rebate is only able to be processed once the charger is installed on site, once it's energized, once it's communicating and activated, as we call it, go live. Dominion Energy Virginia also has the right to inspect, add signage, and in general, check on these stations once they're installed. These are requirements of participation for this really generous, innovative program. And these are, in keeping with standard requirements as seen not only in Virginia, but around the country. Now we want to go a little into qualified networks and equipment vendors on the next slide. So, there are 3 fundamental areas that the program may fund. Infrastructure upgrades, EV charging stations, and the network software solutions. Now, the qualified network providers and smart charging equipment vendors are going to be discussed in this section. So first, to qualified vendors. The qualified vendors are our program partners, and they must meet these program criteria. Our qualified vendors are trained in the program requirements, and they have ongoing communication with our program team. We have an onboarding process that's performed with each of these vendors, providing the qualifying charger companies to ensure that data access and data collection will occur consistently, accurately, and efficiently. And we have contact communication with them, and we keep.
Hey, Drew.
Yes. Yes, Rehan? No?
This is Sean. He may have been chiming in as it relates to volume. There's a little bit of fluctuation.
Is there? Okay. Thank you. 1 second. raise the volume a little bit here. Let me know if you have any issues. So going back to qualified vendors, so the ongoing communication with our program team is required for all qualified vendors. Going to the next slide about product vendor commitment. These are, with programs like this where we're learning so much so quickly, it's important for the smooth customer experience for us, not only when we're interacting with our customers and Dominion Energy's customers, but also when the vendor is interacting with y'all. And so, we made these vendors commit to these things. We made them to commit to provide customer assistance in purchasing, installing, operating, and maintaining charging stations. We required that they collect and report reliable, high-quality charging utilization data from smart network charging stations. Flexibility to promote flexibility and choice for customers while delivering a consistent experience for both customers and Dominion Energy. And then durable utilization and equity and inclusion. Supporting equity and inclusion, essentially access to mobility, access to EV charging for the deployment of this EV charging program. So next slide, we begin to go into some of the particulars around rebate levels. The program provides support for non-residential facilities to install EV charging stations, as you may know. It's a large portion of the support is overcoming barriers to EV installations because there's been regularly called out issues of lack of knowledge on customer and site hosts, and the hassle of learning about these new chargers, the time, the cost, all these kind of things. This program tries to simplify that, remove the friction from this process so it's simpler for all participants. And so going to the next slide, I'm covering program offerings. The program provides education on why install EV charging stations. Program provides education on how to go about the installation, rebates to buy down the cost and commitment, and help select products that meet predetermined qualifications, but also allow for customer selection. So everything from installation contractors to network providers to charging stations. Next slide. And so this is probably the one that everyone wants to screenshot. This is the rebate caps. And so, this is on the website, and, rather than just walk you through these numbers here, we will go through some of the particulars of this program and how the rebates are set up. Just to call out here what we described before about the rebates, we broke up those components here. The utility infrastructure per site, the customer infrastructure per site, the network fee per charger, the equipment per charger, and just a reminder at the bottom of the minimum and maximum chargers per site. Now, the next slide actually goes into sort of a visual map of the universe that we're talking about here in terms of the things that are covered. So the blue bars are the front of the meter, the utility side of the meter, if you will. This covers the distribution grid, the transformer, service connection. The next is the meter and submetering. And the next blue bar is behind the meter, the customer side. So the meter is sort of the inflection point. Everything to the left of it is the utility side. Everything to the right of it is the customer side. This is an important understanding in this kind of dynamic because, as you'll see on the next slide, what we're saying this program covers is incentives for EV service connection, so transformer, service connection, submetering. That part of the utility side is included, along with behind the meter on the next slide, you see, again, submetering, the EV supply infrastructure, the breaker panel upgrade, the customer feeder installation, the charger installation, all of that covered in the rebate. Then on the next slide, you start seeing the software covered, the charging equipment covered in the rebate. And these are the key components. Just calling out specifically in this slide, the program offering we're talking about is multifamily and workplace. So in multifamily and workplace, we are not rebating your car. We're not rebating the charger maintenance, the actual equipment maintenance, the hardware. We're not, providing new distribution lines or a new transformer. What's being included in that offering for multifamily and workplaces, the submetering, the breaker panel, the upgrade, the customer feeder installation, the charger network, and the charger itself. That's for multifamily and workplace. And when we say charger network fee, what we're talking about is that software that we mentioned before that collects that data, and that data is compiled for future data program offerings. Slide 22, the next slide, covers sort of what the program offering is for public DC, FC charging, and transit charging. So this is where we include the whole enchilada, as you'd say, EV service connection, distribution infrastructure, the front of the meter utility side, the meter, and the behind the meter customer side. These are big projects, so they do and take a lot of load, and so that's where these kind of upgrades to the transformer and service connection, they make sense because these are large loads. It's not like a trickle charge. These are heavy duty charges, and so for DC and transit, that blue box that's covered is everything that's included in public fast charge and transit. Again, still a 5-year software charger network fee, and the charging equipment is also included. So I just ran through those really quick. And again, I just want to remind everyone, the bottom of this page, dominionenergy.com/skip, you can learn all the particulars about each individual segment. And also you can reach out to us at, along with this. We'll give you contact information at the end of this, but it's also available on the website. And so the next part is about installing the EV infrastructure. And for that, I want to hand it over to my colleague, Shelly Francis, Dr. Shelly Francis of EV Noir, and hand it over to you, Shelly.
Thanks, Drew. Good afternoon, everyone, or actually good morning, still morning. Now we're going to go through the installation process. So, are you ready to participate in the program? Well, hopefully you're as excited as we are about the program. So first, you should talk with your leadership teams to assess interest in installing electric vehicle charging equipment. So once you do that, it's important to assess program eligibility. So to do this, you can go to the website to review your eligibility criteria. Next slide. So now that you've determined or confirmed your eligibility, identify a project champion at your company. So that could be someone like your sustainability director or your facilities manager, for instance. Review the list of approved vendors for the project and then assess your electrical and infrastructure needs. So you need to determine if upgrades are needed. And now remember, as Drew just shared, if upgrades are needed, this program does provide additional financial support to help defray the costs that are associated with updating your infrastructure. Next slide. Now let's talk about how you can participate in this program, because I know that's what everybody wants to know. Next slide. So we're going to walk through from the application process to receiving the rebate. So next slide. All right, great. So to apply for the rebate program, you're going to go to the dominionenergy.com/skip page, and you're going to hear that a lot. Once you're there on the site, complete the application process.
Muted.
Line application. If you have any questions as you're going through that process, please feel free to reach out to us at dominionenergy.skip@guidehouse.com. Then prepare your application for submittal. Next slide. Great. So once you have prepared your application, you're going to identify and reach out to qualified contractors to get bids for the project work. If needed, in some cases, you might have to work with an engineering firm to help develop a site plan. Then after you do that, you'll upload the site plan and construction schedule. We want you to upload all necessary documentation select your make, model number for the charging equipment, and then submit the application. Next slide. You're going to receive an email to confirm that your application has been received and reviewed. So after the site plan approval has been completed, if applicable, please make sure to provide any updates via the portal. This step is going to allow you to verify that the program team and you are in agreement about the maximum number or the maximum approved rebate amount and construction schedule. Now, if there's any disagreement, make sure to check off that there are some concerns in the documented project details, and our project team will contact you. Next slide. All right, so now we're going to talk about installing the charging station, because at this point, you're now ready to get steel in the ground. So if necessary, apply for local permits, and then initiate your work request with Dominion Energy and initiate your site plan. Work with your approved vendors to get your hardware and software equipment, and then work with the contractors to install the chargers and connect to the network. Next slide. Once your chargers are installed and connected, provide site photos, equipment, and installation receipts, and the network connectivity report. After submitting this information, you will receive a confirmation email. Next slide. And now is the fun part. After receiving confirmation per the processing timeline, you're going to receive the applicable rebate. And of course, you should feel free to reach out to our call center team to check on the status of your rebate. So next slide. Okay, so what happens next? So now you understand more about the program, the areas of the customer demand for this program, as well as eligible customers, sites, equipment, program requirements, the rebate process, and installation. So what do you do next, you might ask? Well, so the next step is go and get ready, get prepared. Next slide. Oh, thank you.
Unmuted.
I know we've covered a lot today. We want to share the following resources with you because you're going to refer to them quite a bit. First, we have an email for you to contact us and ask any questions. And then second, you have access to the website here. So this is going to have all the information that you need to get started. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues so we can begin the question and answer period.
Thank you. So this is Karen. I'm going to read off the questions, and Drew will MC and answer or hand off to somebody. Great. So our first question is, does this program use ChargePoint and or some other existing vendor, or will the stations be provided via Dominion?
So in particular, this program has a list of qualified vendors that will be made available publicly. We are currently in the process of going through what we shared about the vendor training, getting them up to speed on the program so that they can suitably communicate with their customers across the state. I'll let Rehan share any particulars about any details of individual vendors if that is publicly shareable at this time. However, we did do a competitive bidding process that was evaluated based on the criteria that we included about requirements for the program participation. Rehan, anything to share on the particulars of the vendors here?
Yeah, I'll let Kate Staples from Dominion answer that question.
Kate, maybe.
Kate, you may.
Yeah, go ahead, Kate. I think you were muted there.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. We will be posting a lot of resources on our program website over the next couple weeks, and one of those resources will be the list of qualified equipment. We will have choice in each of the segments of hardware and software providers, so that will be your guide to the equipment that you can use for the program.
Great, thank you. So the next question, Will the stations be required to be open to the public or may be restricted to just the workers at the workplace?
It will be, it is available, it is up to the site host how much they want this to be available to the public. There are plenty of situations where for workplace charging, for whether it's security or containment staff, there may be reasons to not make the charging available to the public. That is the decision of the site host. There are also a lot of reasons where a site host may want access and visibility of this kind of investment and charging availability to not just their employees, but also their customers, whether it's a retail, commercial, or industrial enterprise, or a city operation. So these are totally decisions up to the site host. The only requirement is on workplace and multifamily. Once again, you must have an EV driver that uses that site. That is a requirement, and so that's ultimately it. Whether it's an employee or a resident, you must have an EV driver. And of course,
Okay.
the public is required for DC, and the transit is flexible, but we very much assume that the transit charging will be done in a depot behind a fence.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to skip over questions that I believe were answered later in the presentation. So if you still feel like your question hasn't been answered, please repost. So moving on to, do the rebates only apply to smart charging installations?
Yes.
Okay. Can our existing—
And for the audience, that may mean that they're, I don't know, unnetworked means essentially a plug. And so networked means there's data being collected and able to go over a network. And so that is a requirement for the program.
Hey, Drew, this is Staples at Dominion. I just wanted to add that the reason that we really want the smart networked chargers is so that Dominion Energy can collect charging data.
Yes.
We're collecting information on about the session length and how much energy is used and when that charging takes place, so that we can design future programs for customers that is based on actual data in Virginia.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call out.
So the next question, can our existing charge point stations be added to this program or for new installations only?
Kate, you may want to cover the particulars of this. We have gotten this question in a number of different ways around folks who are already looking at or already bought EV chargers, and they are looking at whether or not they qualify for this rebate.
Sure, absolutely. So we're finalizing our terms and conditions for the program, which will be posted on the website. But one of those conditions says that when you apply for your rebate, the charging station needs to be installed within the last 45 days. So if you installed a charging station 6 months ago, that would not be applicable. But if you installed a station very recently, and like between now and when the program is open for applications, you may apply for that. And but it does have to be on our qualified equipment list. So you'll have to meet both of those requirements. And again, those specifications will be on our website soon.
So the next question, it refers to a slide in the beginning. I think it was one of Rayhan's slides. The question says, I'm a property manager for commercial office buildings. The last slide, which is one of Rayhan's slides, which listed rebates, and the commercial rebate had the number 400. Is this a minimum?
No, this is that is the amount of rebates that are available. So each of those numbers are the amount that are available in each bucket. So the minimum amount of chargers required for workplace is 1, and the maximum is 10. Now, again, these are dual port networked, so that means 10 chargers would mean you have 20 ports for 20 parking spots. So that is per site. Now, as long as you have an EV driver at multiple sites, you can apply for multiple sites, and you can apply for multiple chargers at multiple sites. For workplace, your maximum is 10 per site, and for multifamily, your maximum is 4 per site.
Great. Does the rebate work for chargers purchased through a vendor like Blink, or our charger purchases and maintenance is contractual?
Good question. So again, speaking to specific vendors, there are a list of qualified vendors that will be made publicly available shortly. And those are going to be your qualified vendors that this rebate will apply to. We'll be able to share about specific make and model at that time. However, if you are about to pull the trigger on purchasing an EV charger and it hinges on the dependency of participating in this rebate, I would recommend getting the information about who the qualified vendors are before that decision being made, so that you're making an informed decision.
Great. I'm skipping over slide. Questions have been answered. So one question is, are these slides on the website? So we will be posting the recording, and we could also repost the slides.
Yes.
Okay, next question. Who pays for the electricity use on these chargers?
Well, this is going to be sub-metered on the site, and so the site host will be paying.
Okay. How do you define workplace site when it is a big campus? Can different buildings be different sites under the same Dominion account?
Ooh, great question. I like that question. Great call out. So you need a non-residential account, a non-residential rate, and so your account needs to, if it is a single account for a single site, and the site being a building envelope, then you can apply for that site. Now, if you're on a campus all owned by the same entity, we'll probably have to speak with you directly to get a sense of the scale. I know, obviously, Virginia has a number of large campuses for government and corporations and headquarters of various types. So, we are working closely with the key accounts team at Dominion Energy to make sure our customers are really satisfied with this. So if you have a specific question about your specific campus, I do recommend you reach out to our team so that we can help you look through that. But to answer the essential question of, it is an application per site, and that you can have multiple sites and multiple applications, but you cannot have multiple applications for a single site on a single account.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
The next question. So in terms of we've been identifying that the items will be posted on the site. So for example, these slides are not yet on the website. So please visit again. Again, there's also other material that are not yet available, and they will become available over time.
Karen, this is Kate. I'm just doing a time check. I'm letting you know we have about 10 minutes left. If we need extra time for questions, I know folks are willing to stay on, but if you had a question and it didn't get answered, we do see who asked the question. We will make sure we get an answer to you, even if we don't bring it up on the call.
Thank you, Kate. So I'm skipping over the next question. We've answered it. So one question. We have in-house engineering and electrical expertise other than the actual vendor device. Can we still be eligible for the rebate?
Yes. So that's a great question. So the customer choice and having options is baked into the premise of what Dominion Energy did here, and I really applaud that. So take for instance, in a lot of instances in other places, what you'll see is a utility have one specific vendor with one specific installer group. And that can cause a lot of, there can be challenges around that. And so, the qualified vendors will have installer networks in your part of Virginia, and it's a big state. And so there's going to be options in every part of the state. However, with that said, there's also a lot of in-house options, whether it's for corporate or government entities, you may have your preference. So in those situations, you have the option to choose vendor, I want to use your network, or vendor or network of installers, or vendor, thank you much for the equipment. We're going to have our own internal team install this. And so that you can have your option there, or you can choose an independent installer. And there's some recommendations around that for best practices, but you are not held to only who the vendor offers in terms of installing it.
Okay.
And just another call out, the only restriction is the qualifying equipment for software and hardware. Installation and engineering vendors essentially are flexible.
Thank you, Drew. So is there a way to take advantage of this program for multi-tenant buildings that are under construction if the site does not yet have 10 tenants?
Let us get back to you on that. That's a great question. For in construction, there are particulars that we need to align on in this particular kind of instance. So we will get back with that person asking that question and see how we can help. These are great questions, everyone. Thank you so much for the thought you're putting into your questions. Please keep them up, not only during this webinar, but after as well.
So the next question is, when does the program kick off?
Well, you may have seen the press conference or press release launched this week in celebration of National Drive Electric Week. So what we're in now is something I would call soft launch, which is we're making the public aware. These often require business decisions to be made, escalated for approvals. And so the full launch with the rebate application, the process and all of the particulars, we will be sharing the launch date of the program soon. That will be in the next couple of months. Less than the next couple of months, beg your pardon. Probably within the next month or so.
Yes, we'll be adding a lot of content to our website in the next couple weeks, and if everything goes to plan, this is a pilot program, we will be launching this and having the application portal available before the end of October. We are on track for that right now, and barring any road bumps, we will have it available to the public before the end of October.
Thanks, Kate. I didn't want to speak to. I didn't want to put everyone under the gun of overselling it, but yes, that's right. Within the month we should go live.
So can the EVSE supplier apply on behalf of the end user?
Can you say that one more time?
Can the charger supplier apply on behalf of the end user?
No. Previously mentioned, the program requirements include, and just to pull that up real quick, the first item on the program participation requirement is you must be a Dominion Energy Virginia non-residential customer, and you must own, lease, or operate the site. Now, the vendor we absolutely anticipate that the vendors are, they have been talking with a lot of the people that registered for this webinar. You know them, and that you're talking to these EV charger provider companies, and they're excited to get you to get these new rebates. So working with those vendors, absolutely, you can do that all day. And the vendors should be informing you about these great rebates and the generous offer that this is. But they cannot do the purchasing for you and expect the rebate.
Okay. Will an electrical contractor be able to handle the entire process?
Great question. So this is a qualitative question. So EV charging is something relatively new, even with certified electricians. Even hypothetically, a certified electrician should be able to trench and activate and energize a charging station. However, there are some elements of this technology that are relatively new to the marketplace, been around only 10 years or so. And so not every electrician and certified electrician at that has had the experience of installing these. So, if you're talking about a single station at a single site, even that kind of smaller compared to, 100 charger stations, even for one, we still recommend two things. One, that you put it out to bid. If you are going to be not going through the qualified vendors for installation, we recommend that you put it out to bid, not just take a single bid, and that you put it out to bid, and that you choose someone who you feel displays experience and qualifications in installing EV chargers. Now, with that said, there are some companies that are, their niche is nothing but installing chargers and maintaining them and servicing them for their customers. And so there's others that are wide-reaching electrician shops that part of their shop is EV stations and other ancillary new technologies. So power walls and things of that nature. So you're going to run the gambit, but our only recommendation is, number one, please do put those kind of things out to bid. And yes, they should be able to handle the whole install. I mean, even if you have 10 charging stations in a workplace, these are not projects that take weeks when you're on the ground and you begin the ground disturbance. These are things that can take hours or days. So yes, they can absolutely withstand this kind of project.
Great. Thank you, Drew. So this next question is, currently all of our EV stations are in garages close to electrical rooms. Can these be installed in a surface lot environment without having to run conduit from the closest building?
Have to see the site plan. It sounds very interesting. I would love to talk to this person to see if we can help them, because that's the ideal scenario of having it close to the power source. If depending on how close the source is, there could be easy solutions or feasible solutions that can address that question. I want to call out, we are now at the top of the hour again, and so we do need to wrap this up. Karen, if we have one more question, we can cover that. Otherwise, we need to begin our conclusions.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions left.
Let's make a commitment to you on the audience hearing this now that we are going to get back to these questions offline, that we are going to commit to following up with these individually. And I will welcome the chance to answer any questions that y'all have. Again, the program, you can contact us, dominionenergyskip@guidehouse.com.
I do have one good question here that helps we'll wrap it up. When does the pilot program begin and end? So we already mentioned the beginning.
Great. Yeah. So
the end.
The end. When subscriptions close. And that's the thing. When we say first come, first serve, and the benefit of first mover, We're not joking. I mean, first come first. It is the most fair format that we can find. One of our goals is to fairly and equitably get this information out across the state, across the hills and valleys of Dominion Energy Virginia's service territory, and get this out to large and small customers alike, because we really want this to be in all corners of the service territory. And so our charter is to reach you customers where you are at. And so we look forward to helping you get informed about this, but this is a first come, first serve. And so decisions will be made. And once this is fully subscribed, we're hoping that this could lead the way to more offerings of similar types because of the popularity of this.
I would just add
Hey,
to that,
everybody.
Drew. This is Rayhan here. I just wanted to say, to your point, it is a finite amount of money. It is first come, first serve. Thankfully, the folks that are on this call have good information that hopefully allows them to proceed. And we'll have more information available on the website that you see on this slide, including some robust Q&A that might flesh out some of these answers. And then, of course, the commitment that we've already made to get back to all the questions that have been asked offline. So hopefully, as soon as we are able to open up the application process, you will have everything that you need to get the jump on this and be at the top of that queue as we start to hand out these rebates. One other thing I would add, just touching on what you said, Drew, is this program is part of our grid transformation plan, which is something that policymakers and the legislators at the General Assembly here in Virginia have passed legislation that supports. And so you can be assured that we are going to be looking at ways that we can expand upon this pilot, so that if for one reason or another you're not able to participate right now, our hope is that we will have even more opportunities coming out of this program as we look at the data and fine tune it to make more offerings coming forward that'll be even better tailored and offer significant benefits to all of those that are on this call.
Thanks so much, Rayon. That really is much needed for the audience to know that we are ready to help with this. Kate, any last comments, or Karen or Shelley?
I would say that.
Thank you.
I would add that we're really excited to get this launched and that the program is open to all communities. So definitely look at the resources that we shared and get your application together.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, thank you so much, everyone. Great questions, audience. Thank you for your attention. I'm loving how many great questions we got, and to the speakers. Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you so much for the on-the-spot guidance and insights. Rayon, thank you for your, great energizing opening. And Shelley, thank you for walking everyone through how to install and get their application ready. We will be in touch with folks. And again, this is going to be available on the website. And we will be having future segment-specific webinars at future dates. So with that, we want to thank you and wish everyone a great day.